All right, so 2 questions have come up to me repeatedly this week. And the first is, when is NASA going to post what's funded in exports? And how do I know what measurements and things, science questions, are already covered? So we met yesterday, the people in the project office, and what we decided to do 2 things. Number 1, it is standard for NASA to make an announcement on a selection and do a web posting, which will post details about the selection, the number of proposals, the amount of money, and then puts up the selectees and their project abstracts. So that will go up Friday if my boss signs the letters, and there'll be an email notification. The second thing we decided to do is get a website up and running, working on the content today and tomorrow with the draft measurements and science and information, and that will be public as well, probably tied to the NASA Carbon Cycle and Ecosystems Focus Area website. And we'll put out an announcement about that, so hopefully within the next couple of days, you can go and look in those places when we make the selection and get the information that you need, but we cannot talk about it ahead of actually making the selection and the announcement. The second question I've been getting a lot of is related to how to respond to the Dear Colleague letter and the NSF piece of the proposal, which is not something I can really speak to. So I've asked Rick to make a couple of comments about the DCL, because a lot of people have been coming to me saying, yes, I want to put my exports proposal into NSF, and I want to give them the floor to reiterate that, read the DCL carefully as to what the foundation is looking for. So Rick, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yep. Yeah, so I've been getting the exact same questions, but in the reverse order. And when they ask me about NASA, I push them over to Paula. So regarding the NSF potential role in this, it is relatively straightforward, as we said in our listserv or Candygram message about 10 days ago now, which is, in terms of the target dates, the original Dear Colleague letter was saying that we would accept proposals beginning in February. And the email notice from about 10 days ago was essentially just reminding people that this coming August is indeed after February and still viable. If you look at the wording of beginning in February, does include this coming August. We did feel, particularly with this meeting on the imminent horizon, that it would be worthwhile reminding the community that yes, we will certainly entertain proposals in this coming August. Now, regarding the specific question as to what we are looking for, as pertains to and aligns well with NSF's basic science mission, if you will. We're looking for basic science proposals that can leverage off of NASA's considerable investments in the exports initiative. It's very much straightforward along those lines. We have vessels going out there. There's a whole bunch of measurements being made. It seems a very efficient and wise use of precious resources to align and interfinger with that effort wherever we possibly can. We've also expended money and resources in the biology of the biological pump workshop, so certainly basic science proposals oriented in that vein are welcome, but also so are other science proposals that might be addressing aspects that are not identified in exports science-wise, or are not identified in the biology of the biological pump workshop report either. But those are obvious directions to focus. I will say this, one thing that we are not looking for is if there is and I am not, I have no visibility into the NASA proposals or anything like this, so I am not speaking out of any knowledge or anything, but just in theory, what we're not looking for is if there's a measurement that is not being covered by the funded NASA science proposals. We're not looking for a proposal to come to NSF that basically says, hey, the exports group needs to measure, blank, and there's no proposals to measure blank, so I'm proposing to NSF just to measure, blank, and then call it a day. That most likely would not do well. We're looking for basic science proposals consistent with NSF that leverage off of the NASA initiative. And then just like several of us who were meeting last night with the grad students and postdocs up at Clark 507, the old adage that we tell them applies to y'all too. Call your program officer. If you got any questions about this between now and August, call up the NSF program officer that's most relevant, and just like you would with any other proposal. If I could, I want to say one more thing about a completely different subject, but it pertains to the session this morning. I've also received a lot of questions about how our realignment from infrastructure into the core science and technology programs is going. Often it gets lost that we are reinvesting in technology, particularly through our OTIC program. But just for example, over the last 2 years, the OTIC program has grown from $6.5 million a year up to $10 million a year for FY17. As I said the other day, who knows what's going on with 18 and 19 and beyond, but over the last 2.5 years, the technology program, very specific and relevant to what you're going to be hearing a lot of stuff today on, is already up to 10 million, and NSF intends to continue to emphasize and support technological development. So at that point, I think we're good on the exports. Okay, all right.
For those of you who don't know, there was a Biology of the Biological Pump workshop in conjunction with Ocean Sciences in 2016. And there is a report that did come out of that. So if you want to write a proposal to NSF, I recommend that you take a look at that report. It's on the OCB website under the publications page, under science planning. So do have a look at that. That was quite an effort.